Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power podcast. We have a special guest with us today that I cannot wait to share her with you. Her name is Megs. Welcome, Megs, to the show.
Hey, Shauna, thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you. We always have so much fun chatting. So this is
Oh,
going to be good.
I know it's gonna be great. I can't wait. I can't wait for you to bring your energy to this. This is gonna be fun. So let's share who Megs is and what makes you you.
What a loaded question. Okay, so I am a mom of two girls. I'm a wife. My husband, Adam, and I met and fell in love in Colorado a couple years ago. Gosh, 7 years ago. I also used to work in the corporate world for over 9 years. I recently left back in July. I decided to start my own business. I am a professional organizer now, and my company is Mindful Moves Organizing with Megs. And I started the company because I recently was diagnosed probably about 2 years ago with ADHD. And I found that organizing and getting my life together has really helped me flow in a more creative way. And I want to help people realize the potential that they have to do that as well. So that is me in a nutshell. I'm sure there's more that we'll talk about.
Oh, there is more. I love all of that. Yeah, I tell me a little bit more about you said you have ADHD. Can you tell me a little bit more about finding that out? Like, did you find that out when you were already a mom? Did you find that out before you were a mom? Like, what kind of tell me a little bit about your journey through that and how what came to being diagnosed with that and then how you have come through, to this organized person that you are now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, what's funny is I've been on an organizing journey for 6 or 7 years. And I've just realized that getting rid of a ton of the clutter in my life has helped me focus on the things that I really need to focus on. But I didn't find out that I had ADHD until 2 years ago. So my girls are 6 and 4. So I was well into motherhood prior to knowing. Um, and I will tell you, I didn't fully accept the diagnosis of ADHD probably until maybe 8 months ago, if I could be honest. And part of it, I went in, I spoke to the doctor. We talked a lot. We probably spent about 2 hours together just relating on so much and talking about what ADHD means, so on and so forth. And then I left and decided, well, she probably doesn't know what she's talking about. And I don't have ADHD because, that's a thing that everyone has, right? It's that
Yeah.
popular thing that people get diagnosed with nowadays. And about 8 months ago was when I really started to take a deeper dive into what it really means for me. And I realized that there's a lot of tools that I've created for myself that have helped me deal with a lot of the day to day. For example, when I worked in the corporate world, I was a leader and I led a team of 14 people. And in order for me to stay focused in a meeting and to get the work done that I needed to do, I played with silly putty all day long. And I never knew that that had a correlation. It really just helped me keep my hands busy so that I could focus on the task at hand. And so that's one of the tools that I use and I have in my back pocket to really just help me focus on things. Since then, I've read a ton of books on ADHD and just really helping me understand, like, why does my brain act the way it does, and to know that I'm not alone out there, right? I think
Yeah.
for so long I decided, like, that's not me because I wanted to not be that person. I didn't want to be neurodivergent. I just wanted to be normal and live a normal life. But there were so many things that I found that I was struggling with that no one who was so on quote unquote normal could relate to me on. And so once I started to read books and really understand how I can cope and how I can use so many different tools in my back pocket, I've started to discover how ADHD can be a superpower versus a thing that can hold me back. And so that's something that I'm working on myself, is I want other people to know that it's a superpower. I want them to know that just because you're neurodivergent doesn't mean that you fit into a box, right? And that you're not going to go as far as others. If nothing else, you can go further, right? You just have to understand the way that your brain works and to trick it. You got to continue to trick it into being the best version of you that you can possibly be.
I love that you said that that it's a superpower, and I think it's interesting because my son also has ADHD, and that is like a thing that I say to him all the time, like, you ready to tap into your superpower yet? Are you ready to tap into your superpower yet? For almost the exact same reason as, like you said, when you have you you want to be, like you said, normal. What is actually that, right? And more finding what's normal for you, what your normal is, and to not, just the way of saying it and using your words around it is super important also. How you speak about it, right? How you say it, and everything that you just said is like so positive. It's so positive about it. And it's interesting how your mind can go to the negative. Like, you can choose to make it a negative thing, or you can choose to be like, no, this is a superpower that you can tap into and you can do more than that. And I love how you shared that, because I think it's super important. And when you dive into it and when you kind of pick it apart too, to see like how awesome it is, I freaking love it. I love getting into like ADHD and how, like you said, to trick your brain and how to pull apart things and what you can do and find the little tricks that can help you. And it's so interesting too, with, like you said, there's some things that you have already done and you're like, I've been playing with this silly putty this whole time already. And this is like a thing that actually helps me. It's so interesting how you can work with it yourself and then realize, oh, I got that already in my toolbox. That's really cool.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I love being able to put it in a positive, I'll put a positive spin on it as well. One of the books I read, I'll never forget, in the first couple chapters, I started crying. And it was just because I felt seen in a way that I had never been seen before. And the author even said, reach out to me, tell me how this book has helped you. And I did. I did immediately. And I don't do that, right? I don't reach out to authors, even though there's some amazing people out there. But I did. And I was so excited. I was like, thank you so much for sharing your journey, because it helps me feel empowered to share my journey, because it's going to be different. It's going to be completely different from his, because, ADHD can show up differently in women than it does in men. And so if we can continue to talk about it and what it feels like and what it looks like, gosh, there's like, we can empower the world, right? Because there's so many people out there that don't know how to work with this.
Yeah, or what direction to go to, or like you said too, in the beginning you're like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I don't have this. And
Right?
you're just like, you have to like fight your own self at first to be like, wait, oh, but wait, do I have it? And then you're like, oh yeah, I do. And then you got to like, work through all of those things, taking the steps to actually seeing it also. It's
Yeah.
so, it's so
Well,
interesting. It's so interesting how much we trick our brains, right? Like how much.
it's so funny. And then finally, when I started to reflect on it a little bit more, I started to think about some of the things that I experienced in high school, some of the projects that I would turn in or not turn in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this all does make a lot of sense. So maybe that doctor was onto something when they diagnosed me.
So how did you feel then when you said about 8 months ago? How did you feel when you started like really diving into it and really like seeing, certain ways that can help you and like really tapping into that superpower? How did that feel? Like, what did that do for you in the last 8 months?
Um, I'll be honest, at first it was really scary, as I think like accepting something doesn't necessarily mean that you're accepting and then you're like, oh, I have ADHD. I'm going to shout it to the world, although that's what I'm doing now. Initially, I was really sad. I cried a lot just because I was sad that I didn't know about it sooner, because there were so many things that I feel like I could have tackled sooner. I was sad that, this is something that my kids could have as well. And so now that's something that I'm going to have to work through with them. My husband has ADHD as well. And so we started having a lot more conversations about it. And as I would read something, him and I would then start to discuss how we acted towards each other. So, for example, ADHD, you get hyper focus, right? And when someone interrupts your hyper focus, you can get really angry. Like, it can cause some pretty serious like annoyance.
Mhm.
So him and I started talking about that and when we're hyper focused. And so now we created a system where if he's, if I can see he's hyper focused or he can see I'm hyper focused, we start to ask each other questions so that we know that we need to step away or maybe pause what we have in our brain to write it down. Because sometimes when we have questions for the other person, we want to say it right away because otherwise it could leave forever and we never get it back.
Right.
That's just the
Yes.
way our brains just work so fast. We could have these great, expansive, beautiful ideas, but my partner could be working on this great, expansive idea already, and I could take that away from him by interrupting him. So, so, so back, so rewinding it a little bit, 8 months ago, it took a lot for me to accept it. And then as I started to accept it and work through it and process it and talk about it more, it has become so much more of a regular day-to-day life where I'm like, I have ADHD and I'm freaking proud of it. I think it's incredible. It's so awesome because there's so much that I have to offer the world. And I can't wait to continue to share with that as I continue to learn how to channel that different energy that I have. Um, I think something that I've also come to accept, and I think that has been really helpful for me, is prioritization. People with ADHD tend to get really excited about a lot of things. And one thing that I was actually given feedback in the corporate world is you get excited about too much. There's too many things you get excited about. And I was like,
Really? That's
don't you
interesting.
want that? Like, isn't that
Yeah,
exciting? So, initially when I got that feedback, I was like, well, what do you want me to get excited about? Like, you tell me to live this mission. I'm going to do the mission, right? I'm going to deliver that to the people that are buying our products and services and so on and so forth. But then I realized that I get excited about so much that I don't know how to channel all of my energy into one thing at a time, where I can really hone in on, one project and take it to the next level. Whereas I would get excited about too much, there would be too much on my plate. And then therefore I wouldn't necessarily know how to handle everything at once. And then that's where I would get overwhelmed. I would get bogged down and I would just be like, why am I existing in this life? There's too much, right?
yeah.
So something that I've worked on is I sit down every single day and I actually write down 6 things that I'm able to achieve. Those are the only 6 things that I'm allowed to do that day. And I think about, does it fit into the top 3 priorities of my life? And that's my family, my business, and my home, really. Do those 6 things fit into my number 1 priorities? And if anything, takes me away from those priorities, I have to take a look at my to-do list again and see which thing I have to put on the back burner. And it just really helps me kind of compartmentalize my brain a little bit versus getting excited about all the things. Because I want to help everyone. I want to do all the projects. I want to start all the businesses.
Yeah.
But really, as one person, I can't do that. And knowing what I'm able to do has been helpful to compartmentalize that.
Oh, I love that. I love that you shared that to write down the 6 things every day and then try to really see if that goes with what is important to you. And then if it doesn't, that needs to go to the side. And not, I like how you said it doesn't go away. Like it just
Mhm.
goes to the side, right? And then you just focus on those 6 things and get those accomplished. And it feels so awesome when you actually get those, when you get those 6 things done every day, you're like so much further and more I don't know if I would say organized, but maybe that is the word to say, organized about it, because you're taking that many steps. Like you're
Yeah,
still taking the steps towards the thing and you don't feel overwhelmed and you don't feel, you know, like it's too much, you know?
exactly.
It's like just the right amount just to get you to, keep moving and keep doing your stuff and not get overwhelmed and all of that. I love that. So thank you for sharing that tip. That was
Oh
great.
my gosh, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about what your momhood looks like. Like, what does that look like? I know you said you have 2 little girls. What is your momhood? What is that?
Oh my gosh. So, what is my momhood? What a great question. I love my girls with all my heart. I'm so incredibly proud of them, and it's so fun to watch them grow. And I think, 4 and 6 have been such a really cool age to see them and to learn about them and to hear the words that they say. I try to be a really gentle mom as much as possible. Um, and I'm going to be honest, Shauna, I watch a ton of TikTok videos when I don't know what to do in certain situations.
Mhm.
I look it up because there's so many people out there sharing tips and tricks on what to do in life to help to relate to your children, to understand them. So, gosh, I don't I'm trying to figure out how to describe my motherhood. I'm very hands-on. I want to be a part of their lives. Right now, we just built a volcano on Monday
Oh, cool.
and we made it out of plaster. Yeah, my 6-year-old loves science. And so that was one of my 6 things, right? I had to put down my 6 things. One of my 6 things was to build a volcano on Monday. And so now it's sitting on our kitchen table, and I got sick this week, so we had to put it off. But every single day, the girls are talking about the volcano and what's to come next. And yeah. So yeah, so we're building this volcano, and I love to do things with them and to find out what they're going to be, right? Like what they want to do in their life and what they get excited about, what they don't get excited about. I asked my daughter who's 6, Charlotte, I was like, "Do you want to play sports? Do you want to play soccer?" And she was like, "No, absolutely not." And I'm like, "Okay, good." So I know I kind of
Yeah.
know, and I'll continue to ask her. But I found that 4 and 6, it's been interesting because things are coming up at school now. Like the other day, my daughter hasn't wanted to go to school very often for 2 weeks now. And she was like, I don't want to go to school. I don't like it. It's boring, mom. I can't stand it there. Can't I just stay home with you? I miss you too much when you go to school. And I couldn't get her to really open up about what was going on. And I watched a TikTok video or maybe a couple. And one of the things they said in the video was to say, tell me what you want to talk about. Instead of just saying, like, hey, what happened at school today? Or who did you sit with at lunch? Or what did you do at recess? I just said, what do you want to talk about? And it worked. She opened up and she said, today at recess, my friend told me that I couldn't play with her. And then at second recess, she said that I couldn't play with her again. And then right when they were leaving school, she said that she told her that she was starting to act like one of the bullies at school. She told my daughter that she was starting to act like a bully. And it was just so strange to me, all of these things. And so we had a really good conversation about, like, well, what's a backup plan? If you can't play with this girl at recess, who could you play with? And she, came up with a couple other options. And I said, okay, well, and then if that doesn't work, who else could you play with? And so she came up with some more options. But gosh, it was so hard. I was not prepared for that aspect of motherhood because on one hand, I want to go to the parents and be like, can you like get your kid in shape and tell them that they have to play with my daughter, right? But
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
also not the case because not everyone has to get along and not everyone has to play with each other. Um, so yeah, that was really hard, but I love to have open conversations and I want to treat my girls like their opinion matters. And I think on a regular basis it's really hard as parents to let go of the control aspect of parenting because that's how we were brought up. Like you follow the rules, you listen if someone tells you no, you listen, you pick up your room when you're told, so on and so forth. Um but my husband actually said to me the other day, he's like, and he's watched a video too. He's like, think about the way that you talk to your kids. Would you say that to a friend or someone else that you cared about? And that I brought a lot of perspective into the way that I speak to my kids. And it's not that we're doing anything wrong, right? I think there's so much that we're learning and on a regular basis, gosh, we have no idea what we're doing, right? Because there's no book for how to bring up your kid in 2023, 2024, the world that we're living in right now.
So
We
true.
are literally having to guess and check as we go along. But I just remember as a teenager that I didn't feel very comfortable going to my parents about a lot of things. And I really want to have that open dialogue with my kids where they do feel comfortable coming to me to talk about the things that I have no idea about, but hopefully I can just be there to listen and understand. And so, hopefully that gives a good picture of who I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah, it does. That's great. I love all of that. I love how you said that, you want your kids that you want your kids to come to you and be able to speak to you. And then I love the perspective that your husband had brought to you about, how do you speak to, your kids? Is that how you would speak to a friend? Because it does give you perspective there, right? Like sometimes you don't think about the way that you are speaking, and there's two aspects to it. Like you want to be speaking to them, in, like you said, like in an open, like loving way to where they feel like they can come to you instead of like basically fearing you, because that's kind of like driving a wedge, if you will. But you're also planting the seeds on how they're going to be speaking to other people, right? Like they learn from you. Like, yes, they hear you, but I feel like as parents, a lot of times we plant the seeds by our actions and what we do, and that goes a little bit deeper than our words, right? So when we practice that, it's kind of instilling that in them, and not just to, the people that they love, but also, other people, like on the playground or what have you, right? Like you're teaching them how to speak and be with other people. So I think that that is a really cool perspective to think about, just to like pause and wait and not be so reactive, right? And like think about it for a second and be more responsive versus
Yeah.
being reactive in the situation.
And also easier said than done, right?
Oh,
It's not
yeah.
just because my husband said that doesn't mean like the next day I was like, "Oh, honey, like tell me
Yeah.
everything." Like I still have to work really hard at it. And I
Oh,
do
yeah.
still um of course there's yelling and I try to tone that down as much as possible. I have to be honest and I think you know I think I'm so nervous sometimes. I'm like, do other people even yell? And then I feel so awful about it myself because people just talk about parenting like it's this beautiful thing. And this is what I do. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that's what I try to do. But also, I'm a human being and this is what I do. So if I do yell and I find that it's coming from a reactive place, like maybe I've been interrupted and I'm in a hyper focus and now I've yelled. I will acknowledge that and I will go to my children and I'll be like, hey, mommy shouldn't have reacted this way. And this is why I'm sorry for this. And so I want you to know that you're doing a great job doing what you're doing, so on and so forth. So I do like to really put logic behind some of the things that are happening. And that could probably be my biggest win and my biggest downfall sometimes. But, but
But
I,
I like how you said, like, you're basically like, but I live in reality, because that's like the real thing, right? Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because even this morning I was like thinking, I can't remember what I asked my daughter to do, but I made it like a silly situation of asking her to do something. And then in my brain, I was like, this morning could be so much worse right now if I was like, I need you to do this. And like,
yeah,
like my tone and how I deliver something could change the whole morning. Like, not
a
even just
million
the
percent.
yeah, like it's not just the situation, it could be the whole morning. And of course, like I was super frustrated because I had already said, like, I'm not even kidding you, it was probably 10 times. I need you to brush your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, not doing it, not doing it. And I'm just like, inside, I'm like, raw, brush your teeth, but I'm just like, we have 10 minutes. Like, come on. But then I'm like, I sat there for a second. I'm like, how can I say this to where she's going to be like, okay, and be like, so tried to make it silly. And then
Yeah.
she was in there brushing her teeth. And I'm like, holy moly,
Yeah.
and kind of like living with my own frustration of it. But at least she's doing it now. And then another thing I try is when I ask them to do something and then they do it right away, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for going and doing that right now. That is so helpful for me. So I try
Yes.
to like praise that. So then it just, I don't know, I feel like it just, deepens that planting of the seed when you like really try to, thank you for doing this, or oh, thank you for brushing your teeth. Even though
Yes.
you're like, oh, I told you 7 times, but it's like, thank you for brushing your teeth. That's it. That's all you have to say.
Oh my gosh, a million percent. Oh, and I thank you for just saying that you get frustrated because oh my gosh, I can't stand it when I'm watching these videos and they're like, this is how you do it. It's so
Right.
easy. But something my husband and I do as well is if I can tell that he's getting frustrated, I can typically be in the situation where I'm not because I can hear him getting frustrated. So I want to be the calm in the situation and vice versa. If he hears me getting frustrated, he will come and take over for me. So I feel like that's really awesome when you do have a partner that you can rely on that if you need a break and take a step back from the situation, you have a chance to really like take a deep breath and know that you're not going to react in the way that they need you to right now. So it's okay that someone takes over for you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's hard. That's hard because you just want, like, you're reacting, you're already doing it. But if they have you take a step back, it's just such a beautiful thing and really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's like a team, and then you guys can get like a well-oiled machine, once you practice it, where it's just like tag you're it without even saying it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's brilliant. It really is. Like it's so helpful. I'm so thankful for my husband. He keeps me sane and vice versa.
That's great. That's great. I love it. I know, especially when you're like trying to raise humans and do all the right things. And like you said, there's no book on 2023, 2024 for parenting. It is literally guess and check 100%. So
Yeah.
it's awesome to have like a teammate in there to be like, yes, we're doing this together. And okay, this is your turn. This is my turn. And like the give, take, push, pull, help each other out situation is just so great. It makes it so much
Yeah.
easier, especially when you need breaks, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you mentioned earlier when you were talking about Megs in a nutshell that you I always like to ask my moms like what is something that they're really passionate about. But you mentioned something about your organizing business. I would love to hear that if that is also what you're passionate about. But I want to hear about your business and I want to hear what you're passionate about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You know what? I actually had this really cool coaching session the other day about what your purpose is. And one of the things I came to the conclusion of was just helping people. I have not always been an organized person. In fact, my childhood bedroom, I used to keep all of the things. My parents used to keep all of the stuff. We moved into my grandparents' house when I was 8 years old. My grandparents had passed away. We inherited their home, and all of the stuff that was in that house stayed, and all of our stuff just added on top of that. And so it's funny when I introduce myself to people as a professional organizer, some of them say to me, oh, I too myself have always been organized. I'm like, you and I can't relate on that because I have
Yeah,
not always been an organized person, although I admire that. And I think that's so incredible. I have had to teach myself so much of how to be organized. And a lot of being organized is getting rid of the overabundance of stuff that you have accumulated over your lifetime. And so I think I started probably 6 or 7 years ago. I started watching, I think it's on Netflix, The Minimalist or Minimalism, something. There were two guys that wrote this book, and then they had this Netflix documentary on minimalism, and something that spoke out to me because I was like, I really like stuff. I don't know if I could ever be like that. They said in the video, like, minimalism looks like something different to each person, and it can mean something different to you than it does to me or to the person who only lives with 5 articles of clothing in their life. And so that's where I started to create my own minimalist lifestyle and get rid of some of the stuff that just didn't matter in my life anymore. And I started with the non sentimental items and then things that we just really didn't use anymore. And over the years, like I've sold stuff on Facebook, I've gone to the donation center a multitude of times. And coming back to my purpose, though, I say this because I want to help people believe in themselves that they're able to do something that they haven't necessarily been good at their entire lives.
I love
So
that.
just because you collect a ton of stuff and you're like overwhelmed by the amount of stuff you have doesn't mean that you can't make a decision to get rid of that stuff in your life. And it doesn't mean that you can't be an organized person. Just because you have ADHD doesn't mean that you're always going to be a compulsive shopper. It means that you might have a harder time, but there's tools and there's tricks and there's tips that can get you into the place where you're actually keeping track of the money that you're spending and you know when you have too much of something. And I'll give you a good example. I love gnomes. I love gnomes, and that's what I shop for Christmas, and that's what I buy. And a couple weeks ago, I actually went through all of my Christmas stuff and I purged a bunch of stuff and I took like a good like inventory of what I had. I didn't write anything down, but I have a box of just what I have for gnomes. I also live in a house that's 1,500 square feet. So there's only so many places that I can put the gnomes that I have.
Right. Yeah.
And so my husband and I went to Costco and he loves to point out things that he knows that I will love. And he was like, look at this gnome. And I was like, I don't need it. And he was like, who the heck are you? And
I
I'm just
love
like,
it.
I'm obviously I left my corporate job. I'm starting a business. So I am very money conscious. I love budgeting. That's something else that I've been on a journey on for a couple years now. But yeah, I felt fine saying it. And I also felt fine leaving the store without it. And so there's a lot of mindset changes that I've had to adopt to get into the place that I am now. But I'm really proud to say that I have ADHD and I'm also a professional organizer because I've learned so much along the way. And I love going into people's homes and they're apologizing to me about stuff and I'm like, "No, this is normal. Like this is what I have seen, this is what I have lived through. I see this and I can relate to it and I can help you make sense of what's going on here so that you can make better decisions going forward." So I just love helping people believe in themselves and that's part of the reasons why I'm a professional organizer. And then another aspect of it is I want to help create spaces that help you tap into that creative part of your brain. And when you have a space, like if you walk into an office and it's an office that like, it just helps you realize your full potential and helps you work towards a dream that you have, then you're going to be on cloud nine every day of your life when you walk into that office to a degree, right? There's still life that happens. But if you're walking into an office and that's your dumping ground for all of the excess stuff, like maybe it's where you put all your Amazon boxes, and maybe it's just where all of the excess clothes go because you haven't put them away yet. Like that gets overwhelming. And then you don't want to work on that stuff because it's a distraction from what you really want to be doing in your life. And I come back to that ADHD thing. We have a really hard time prioritizing things. And so if we're not prioritizing getting rid of this stuff, and cleaning and putting things away, it's going to overwhelm us and distract us and could put us in a state where it's a paralysis and we sit there and we're just like, I don't want to do anything because I don't know where to start. I don't know where. There's so much to do, but there's nowhere to start, and it's overwhelming. So I just want to help people understand and know that there's a way to get beyond that, and you absolutely can. And sometimes it takes a long time to get there, and that's totally fine.
Love that. I love that. And I love how you have taken, your experience and what you've done and how you want to um, share that in order for people to see, that there is a different way. There is, or multiple ways even to get to what you want. And I love that it's so true when you have like a clean space or an organized space, how much more productive you can be in that space versus your pile of laundry, and then you have this pile of paperwork over here, and then you have this, and you're just like, what do I do first? It's like
Right?
being pulled. It's like you're being pulled in two directions. But then if it's all like organized and stuff, you just, you can come in and be like, oh, and you're right. It's a process. It's a process that you have to work in because every habit change of something like that is always going to be a process. But the feeling that you get when you start doing it and then you keep doing it is like, it's so worth it because it just feels so much better. And then you do it more and you're just like, yes, this is why I'm doing it. And then you get into a whole, and then all of a sudden it's a new habit. And that's just the way that it is
Yes.
now.
Exactly. Oh, and it's cool too, because like I think like part of it is just you don't know where to start and you're just like, I have all this stuff and it's probably just gonna live with me for the rest of my life. And I part of ADHD too is you want to do a project, you want to do it all at once. Like when there was probably a couple months ago when I was having a really hard time in the corporate environment, I wanted to um I wanted to redo my bathroom. And so I did. I ripped off part of the countertops. I painted the entire bathroom. I even had like an inspirational picture I was going off of. And then I hated it. I sat there and I hated everything that I was looking at. I even sent a picture to my family, and my brother's like, oh, it kind of looks like a Miami Vice bathroom. And I'm like, that's beyond my time, but I still know what that means. And therefore, I don't want a Miami Vice bathroom.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so funny because I saw a video where they were talking about ADHD and having doom boxes all over the place where you start a project and then it like sits in a box and then you never do anything about it and just sits there taunting you. And I saw this doom box sitting there in my bathroom with like this gold stuff I wanted to put up and paintbrushes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But let me tell you, I decided that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, I'm going to get to it because it's going to be on my list. And my bathroom's done now. And I've totally changed it. It got repainted completely. And it's really, really cool. And I'm so incredibly proud of it. And it was cool because I came to the acceptance, like, I'm going to get it done. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be today. And so I'm going to live with like this Miami Vice style bathroom for a little bit, but it's not going to be an immediate like that immediate satisfaction type of thing. And that's going to be okay. I sat with that uncomfortableness for a little bit and then I dealt with it. I'll have to send you a picture of my bathroom. It looks really
Oh
good.
yeah. I want to see it. Yeah. That'd be great. I love that. I love that. So with your organizing business, what like how do you do virtual ones? Are you only local? Like how do you run your business? Like if listeners are like, "Oh wait, she's an organizer. I need that in my life." I feel like we all need that in our lives. How would somebody go about working with you and how would somebody find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So my website is mindfulmegs.com. And on there, you can book a virtual consultation. And so I have virtual coaching that I offer. I'm actually coaching a good friend of mine who also has ADHD, and she's in England, and she'll be listening to this too. So hi, Emily. And and so that's really fun. I'm helping to empower her to make some changes in her life and help give her some more direction because sometimes it's just like, where do I start? And so I'm helping to give her the tools on where to go from there and a lot of empowering around that. And then I also do in person, not only consultations, but also packages, or even just one time I can come to your home and help you understand where to start, depending on the space. And with that, I also do a virtual consultation, and I'm in the Monument, Colorado area. So Colorado Springs, South Denver. But yeah, I can come to your home. And I can also do a virtual consultation if that just makes more sense and you want to do it yourself. I can help give you the tools on where to start and how to continue if you find that you're ever in that paralysis. Right now, I'm working with a client who's awesome. I've been working with her. I'm on my almost sixth session with her. And it's just been really fun. She's putting her house back together after a gigantic claim happened. So they had a water loss, and there was a lot of movers and packers that put their stuff just in random places. And so I'm just helping her make sense of putting her home back together in the way that's just going to make it livable again and enjoyable. Especially as a mom, having kids and managing, putting your home back together and also still managing the day to day on a regular basis. So on my website is the best way to contact me. I will also be starting my own podcast in January, possibly by the time this launches, which will be really awesome. And yeah, you can find all of that on my website.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing all that information. I love that you
Yeah.
can do virtual consults too, and then you coach them through, like you said, the paralysis. That is like so key. It's not just giving you, this is how you do it, but then how you can coach them through it. That's really important.
Yeah,
So thank you for sharing.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, out of all of the things that we talked about, I always like to ask my guests on my show to reveal what one of their superpowers is. Can you reveal what one of your superpowers is?
Oh gosh. I think one of my superpowers is finding finding the good in the people that I meet. I can help people believe in themselves. Uh, Even if I know them for 5 minutes, I can help talk them into believing in themselves for the rest of the day or for the rest of the week or for the rest of the year, depending on what I know about them. I think it's just building people up. I want people to know that they're worth so much in this crazy world that we live in. And I know that for myself, and I have to tell myself on a regular basis, right? It's not just a one time. I believe in myself and I've got it, right? It's a constant practice. But being able to reinforce that in someone else and just seeing the good in them that they represent in the world, I think that's my superpower. One of them.
I 100% agree and can attest to this because we are a part of a group. And so I've been getting to know her for a while now. And that is one of the things that I love about you because if we're in the group and somebody is struggling with something, the when you speak a message of that of like believing in themselves, you have a way of wording it that is like so empowering and motivating. And every time it's like you can hear a pin drop when you're done speaking and then the person's like, wow, thank you for saying that. Like every time it's so awesome and you do it, you just deliver it too. So I can attest to that. Yes, I 100% agree with that.
Yay. Oh, I love that so much. Thanks for saying that. I
Yeah. I
appreciate
mean, I
it.
personally received it from you as well, so I can yes, yes, that is awesome. Thank
Absolutely. And there's more where that came from. So
yes, yes. Well, thank you for being on today and sharing all of your tidbits about your momhood and your business and who you are. I'm so thankful to have you here and to share everything that you shared today.
oh my gosh, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you to all of your listeners. And I can't wait to chat again.
Yeah.